Hey everyone, and we are back with this week's review of the month. So let's dive in. First, let's begin. My guest of this month, Sonia Harjani. She's a very good friend of mine as well as a client. And I had the pleasure to speak to her about, can moms have it all? Can women have it all? And it's been a conversation that's been playing on my mind for quite a while, especially since last year's theme was about burnout, imposter syndrome, and all about women and menopause. Now maybe it's me having to reflect back on my life. You reach a certain age and you just wonder, well, why am I doing all that I'm doing? Do I have any regrets still or anything lingering that I would like to do? Because when you get to a certain age and you realize, oh, you don't have kids, why were you living the kind of life you were? So maybe I was having a bit of a midlife crisis. I don't know, but I'm over it. So that led me to having a conversation with Sonia, and I was really inspired by her enthusiasm, by her positiveness of how to approach having it all. How do you manage all that? And this month, there's also another thing we're featuring, which is the Just Be Me boards. This is my signature mood boards that I do ever so often to get us back connected to, are we being ourselves in the environments we find ourselves in, be it in your career or your personal life. You're reinventing your life. Now, I struggled for a long time to talk about it because there was a time where you could never say that you were against vision boards because, if you did say that, everybody would be up in arms and saying, "Oh, how can you say that? Vision boards really work." From experience, I never really could connect to it and I couldn't understand why. And I realized it's because there was such a pressure that vision boards were so great that everyone had to do it. You'd have to do it too. It was like an artificial fake it till you make it kind of a feeling that associated with it. So for me, I just couldn't interest myself into it. I moved away from it, and I do believe in the power of visualization. So when you visualize within yourself, you do tap in easier with your emotions and feelings. I mean, think about it this way: we go to movies and we're just in as if we're in the movie already, taking it all in. And I feel visuals do very much the same thing within our minds. And that's the one thing we can control. We can work with our visuals by training our mind and empowering our imagination. And that's really good because it inspires creativity, finding different solutions to different situations, staying curious. There's so much positiveness that comes out of connecting with your imagination and seeing how the world is going in the direction that's become very polarized. If you don't agree with me, there's this cancel culture. There's a lot of fear of speaking up that we start living inside of ourselves, and the imagination is going towards a more fearful imagination instead of a more creative imagination. And when you're more in the negative side of things, you can actually become emotionally numb to feeling different emotions because you're constantly in a sort of busy thinking, worrying, overwhelming, and it can really drain your energy out. So the Just Be Me boards, ever so often I do them because it brings me back to connecting with myself. It's quite meditative in its own way. And I do this through different means. I start with a certain way of journaling, and then I will do my first mood board, and I don't dwell on it for long. It has a different flavor to it. It's about just connecting to my reality and knowing, how do I want to create a strategy or a plan to continue to be myself every quarter or every 6 months of the year. And the reason I do that every quarterly or every 6 months in a year is because we can get so caught up in our lives and unexpected things happen, right? And when unexpected things happen, you can easily forget about it. And the other thing is, with a Just Be Me board, when you do it in quarterlies or every 6 months, when you put a board up on the wall, I don't know if you're like me, but after a while it becomes part of the wall. I don't even look at it anymore. It's just like, oh, painting on the wall. And so I lose a certain appreciation for it. But if I do it enough times, so every 3 months or every 4 months, it's not back. It doesn't become part of that wall now. It's part of me looking at it and knowing that every quarter I'm going to be doing it differently or connecting back with myself and make changes. And by doing it quarterly, you're also allowing yourself to accept one really crucial thing that I feel that if we can embrace this in life, it can help us so much in our resilience when adversity comes our way or when things that fall apart, when we have to face those moments, we have the courage to go through them. And that is change. Change happens. Change can happen in a second, in a moment, in a flash. And often we don't see it coming. And when our external environment changes, we often feel we're not prepared. And again, if our mind or imagination is constantly in one direction, it'll find it very hard to find a different solution. So, if you're interested in doing a Just Be Me board and you want to be able to understand how to go through the strategy and how to focus, contact me. I'm happy to have that conversation with you as well. Now, what has been trending on LinkedIn? I wanted to start this for a while to talk about this. And the trend for me that I notice a lot is that people are just tired of personal development. People are finally exhausted. The number one thing I heard that is being searched on Google is I'm tired. Not surprising, since 2023, there was a lot of things coming at us, from politics to careers to economical to society. It was just coming from all directions that people were just like, I'm done. And coming out of COVID, we're still struggling to, there's something like missing. There is a exhaustion that still continues since then. So, with exhaustion and burnout, instead of doing much more, our capacity inside of ourselves to do much more is less. That exhaustion, just feeling drained, you don't have that feeling to do a lot. And this is a period of time where connecting with your breath and doing relaxation can be very useful. We underestimate it because we think that's a bad thing still in society. Resting and relaxation seems to feel like if you're not doing that, you're not productive, which is, it's so reverse in thinking, because I had that thinking. And when I stopped doing that, I felt that by giving myself more relaxation, my mind could process things much easier and much faster. So then being productive or no longer procrastinating, it is a possibility because you're not putting so much pressure on that you have to be busy. Researching, I'm tired. I would rather you research inside yourself and relax and take those extra breaths in your day. Grab a cup of tea. Just a nice herbal tea does make a difference because it doesn't aggravate your anxiousness from inside. It doesn't aggravate the nervous system. And when it comes to breathing, there is a physiological reasons for it, why breathing is so effective, because you are telling your body it's okay to relax in this moment in time. And by taking those breaths deliberately, it also helps you to connect back to your body, because your body is a representation of your nervousness. How you are feeling from inside yourself, it's tangible, something you can feel. But if you take care of just your body and not your mind, and if you take care of just your mind and not your body, you will still find yourself in a disequilibrium, as it were. So if you're feeling tired, go back, research within yourself. Don't just stay away from judging yourself really harshly. I know it's hard, but try it out. The next thing I want to share is my tip for the month is coming from my book, Befriend Your Mind. It's the first reminder about remembering the four basics. And it's a running strand in today's conversation. What is it all about? When I think about the four basics of life, it's about how to be okay with your expectations. I used to always hear expectations reap disappointments, but sometimes you do feel like you need to have expectations, otherwise, you become a people pleaser. The key is being aware of the kind of expectations you have with yourself and with others, being aware of how realistic those expectations are and how much it's driving your emotions and influencing your emotions. The second thing is remind yourself about checking in with your assumptions. We can assume a lot of things about a lot of people, but if we look at the world today and how polarized it's getting, we're flying off the handle when people don't agree with us, with our beliefs or our values and or our moral code. And so everyone's feeling very sensitive about how to speak about it. So then we start assuming a lot of things. So if we're not training our mind to stay in a sense of calmness to process what information is coming at us, we can start assuming a lot, and assumption very often leads to arguments and disagreements with in heated energy, as it were. Then there is uncertainty and change, which is what I spoke about earlier. If there's one thing you're certain is that change is going to happen. So is death, unfortunately. But every moment something begins and something ends. No moment is ever the same. And by training your mind with these four things, so how to deal with your expectations, how to deal with your assumptions, recognizing that uncertainty and change are always present. By doing that and working with yourself and having a healthier relationship with that, you also help yourself not to get anxious very often. And doing a lot of creative work does help. So we are all creative beings. You know, you don't have to be an artist. You can do something like Zentangling, taking photographs, going for a movie, going for a walk, doing a drawing, a doodle, all those little things, believe it or not, they are very relaxing as well. So if you find yourself trying to sit for meditation and forcing yourself and struggling, try doing a creative skill or developing a creative skill that will calm you down so that when you sit, you're not fighting with yourself in meditation, or rather, you're not fighting with your mind in meditation. And by doing that, you start having a healthier relationship with your resistance and your coping mechanism. And this is key as we move forward, even in 2024, because there is still a lot of chaos in the world, and it's still going to continue. So everyone who starts with new life, new me, new resolutions, reality kicks in by week 3, and then we're like, oh, back to the same old, same old. Well, how about having a different relationship with that frame of mind? Working with it rather than arguing with it, resisting it, or giving it a lot of judgment. So that is my review for the week. This is my thought for the week. And I'd look forward to hearing from you. You know, it'd be really great if you send me a DM or a message and saying, hey, I have this in my mind. I would like you to talk about this. If you have a question, I'm happy to jump back online and answer them for you. And there are a couple of other ways you can engage with me. I have a newsletter where I also bring out a lot of different workshops and webinar and talks. Or join me on my social media. Just search for Kirtana168. You see, the idea behind Kirtana168 was always about building a community, giving people the ease to communicate with one another. So engaging on these different platforms, I'll get to understand more what material you want and where I can support you, and hopefully that can support someone else out there. It's all this year is about connection. Let's making a community and making it not feel so tough. Don't make life so tough, and being supportive for one another. And at Kirtana168, that's what we're all about, on how to become friends with our mind. So I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you for listening, and thank you for following and subscribing. I really appreciate it. Every follower does help. And that's a wrap for this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to connecting with you next week. Take care. Have a good week.